pulling away from the sides of the bowl on its own. And I think a lot of people get really obsessed with the kneading process. They say like 5-10 minutes. There's I find that the kneading, when you need to do an extra lot of kneading, it's more so for things like pasta, tortillas, things of that nature, rather than just a simple everyday bread dough. This is what I have found out. Other people can say other things, but this is what I found out. And you're looking for a texture more so than anything, and you want it to pull away from the sides on its own. But as you can see, this isn't really sticking at all. It comes off fairly easily, like this. And it's not about necessarily overworking the dough. It's about a moisture ratio. Then you do want to obviously create the gluten, but as you can see, like my finger, it's actually taking more that was stuck on my fingers off. But yeah, like, and it won't stick to my other fingers, as you can see. Like, that was just because I was trying to rip it off of the hook here. But yeah, and that took about 1 altogether, 3 cups more in here. So look at the beautiful texture on that. And then I'm just gonna put this in an olive oil bowl real quick. Healthy drizzle, because this is a very large bowl that I'm using, and I might need to use another one for rising purposes. And then just get your hand in there, give it a good little swish around. And ooh, it's making sounds. Once again, you are going to need this again, like not need with an N, need with a K, but so you will get that beautiful gluten texture that you want. But I also like my bread soft. I don't like a nice crust is good and whatever, but sometimes I just want a nice soft piece of bread for my peanut butter sandwich. If you're into that thing, if you want to add jelly, you can. I do not add jelly. It's a little too much for my senses or something. And now I just have to do this 3 more times. Look at how beautiful this texture is. See, it doesn't stick at all. I love it. And then you just give it a little scrape. Oh, this is gonna be so good. And it's such a pretty color. And number 2. Yeah. There we go. And just flip this to coat this other side with olive oil. Ugh. And this is good. The olive oil is going to help when it rises, so it won't stick or form a weird like air crust. It's worth, just trust me, it's worth it. And we're going to also cover this with some plastic wrap as well as soon as I get the rest of this in here, which will be a minute. 2 more. Once I do know the measurements for flour that I'm using, which this ended up being about 5 cups of flour. I'm also at a different elevation. If you put your liquid first and then you put your flour on top, you reduce the risk of all of this nonsense happening, you just and it shouldn't splash up on you because it'll start incorporating before any of the nonsense happens. As you can see. But do make sure you lock it in place, because it will go everywhere. See how it's pulling away from the sides? That's what you're looking for. Even that nice little sound there. But really just beautiful texture, and it's not sticking to my fingers at all. You can kind of see how cleanly that comes off, and it, once again, not sticking to me, but it just comes. That's what I mean about texture, and I know I keep saying this, but it's so important. Like, you still have your gluten, and once again, you are going to need this again, and we're gonna do that one by hand, but you see how it's like, it doesn't stick to me at all. See, it doesn't want to even stick to the bowl. Just pull it right out. And that's what I'm gonna do. See? Okay, that's batch number 4. I just put on top, you can see. Now we're just gonna give it a flip. Like, you need to exercise when you make bread, or you're a chef. I swear. The things I end up picking up that I just pick up like 50 pounds of bread real quick. No problem. I don't even realize that I'm doing it half the time. Or just a pot full of water, 50, 40 pounds here and there, just lifting that, lifting it up, getting things done. Okay, so it has a decent layer of olive oil over the entire thing. And everything is all nice and incorporated. Now, this is actually like the hardest part of this, if I'm perfectly honest. Now we're just going to cover it with some plastic wrap and let it rise in the oven without the oven on. And I'm going to put a pot of hot water in there to help it stay nice and warm so that the yeast can do their things and it can expand, as well as keeping everything nice and moist. It does really well in a nice humid environment. I'll even sometimes cook with that same boiling pot of water underneath, because it helps everything stay so much nicer and the rise on everything, so you don't get that weird air crust. But I don't, like I said, I know people like it when it's like crusty, but I also don't want it like cutting my gums. And yeah, certain places have some bread that will cut. Make sure it's actually touching the dough, not just like hovering over it all nice and pretty like that. I only do this to make sure that I can get. Now you're gonna press it and tuck it in on the sides, so when it rises, it will the plastic will rise with it, and once again try to nullify that weird air crust from happening, which will also keep it from rising. But yeah, make sure it's actually touching the dough, and that'll help a lot. That way it'll rise and the plastic will go with it. If you are not making as much bread as I am, what I'll do is I'll use a smaller bowl and then just a jar of hot water in the microwave, and it makes a really good proofer in case you need something a little bit smaller than having to use the entire oven. Into your loaf pans, you're gonna just brush some olive oil all over all the sides, and then you are gonna put some flour in and just give it a good little like toss and roll it around so it coats all the sides. This way your bread won't stick. This is how the bread turned out after it has risen for the first time, and as you can see, it pushed up the plastic so that it stayed around it. See, it even like tucked itself in down here. Yeah. Did 2 pounds. It's supposed to be 1.5, but 2 pounds works so much better. And I just put a little extra olive oil on top, and then I'm going to cover it with plastic and let it rise again for about an hour or so.